Hey guys, it's Amanda. I'm going to do part 4 and 5 of my parents run a successful business on the black market. On the black market? I was almost close with that one. Okay, I know part 5 is about a 20-minute one. Not sure how long 4 is. I have a new battery, so I'm going to try to do at least 4 and 5 together. And depending on if I get that little flashing light again, I'll do part 6 as well. I haven't read the last 3 parts, so they're all brand new to me too. But anyways, part 4, the family business. I was frozen in fear. My dad was speaking, but it sounded like he was underwater. Jumbled, muffled, incoherent. The 3 of us stood in the white hallway, and I looked up at the lights. Still hearing the mumbling mess that was spewing from my dad. The light started to contort, and then it went black. I woke up and I saw my parents hovering over me. Mom had a wet washcloth on my forehead, and it seemed like Dad never stopped talking. When I was 5, my parents took me to the public park. It was one of the few memories I have where we did something as a family besides eat dinner. I jumped on the merry-go-round and swung around and around until I was nauseous. I remember watching the green trees twirl around me as I started to spin out of control. There was an enjoyable panic that came along with that. A perfect balance of fear and happiness. Hannah! My vision sharpened and then I focused. There she is, my dad said with a smile. I sat up and looked around. We were still in the white hallway and I was on the cold marble floor. Was everything a dream? Had I went on a mission to find Potato and just passed out? That had to be what happened. It was a nightmare. They helped me off the floor and I stood there trying to get my bearings. Now, we need to go sit somewhere and have a talk, sweetie, my mom said in a comforting tone. This wasn't a dream. The 3 of us had walked downstairs and into the living room. I took a seat across from them on the couch. I didn't want to sit next to them. They exchanged glances and then looked back at me. I'll start. My dad looked at me with concern. What you discovered today, Hannah, well, you weren't supposed to. Your mom and I had debated for years whether or not to let you know about what we do. My mind slipped off. Years? How long has this been going on? Had it been going on since before I was born? I could imagine my mom being pregnant and swollen, taking orders for body parts over the phone. Hannah, stay with us, snapped my mom. I focused back on Dad. I know you have questions. You weren't supposed to find out this way. That's why we built this extension, to keep you safe and to keep you innocent. We never meant for you to find out this way. I looked down at my hands. I had a bad habit of picking my cuticles. Blood ran down the middle of my finger and twirled until it pooled between my knuckles. I had picked a hole through it, and I couldn't feel anything. Oh, hang on, you're bleeding. My mom jumped up and tried to tend to my fresh wounds with tissue. I turned away, rejecting her help. She stood there for a minute and then sat back down. I understand how you must feel, she said. Do you? I spoke for the first time. The words came out raspy and harsh. Do you really? Do you guys honestly think you know how I feel? I paused. They were silent. The floor was mine. I stood up, clenching my hand that was dripping with blood. My mom shifted around in her seat as she watched the blood collect on the hardwood floor. Her OCD was our silent tormentor. Dad put his hands on her lap as to tell her to sit tight and let me say what I needed to say. She looked at him, then back at me. I'm sorry, did you guys ever accidentally find out that your parents were serial killers? Did you ever stumble upon into their torture chamber and find their poor tortured victim? Do you guys really know how I feel? And stop. We are... No! What the hell is going on? Who are you guys? What do you do to these people? That woman. Tears welled up in my eyes. That woman had pointed to my finger. She had a family. Someone who loves her. She has a life. What gives you the right? Our business is not glamorous, no. But it's a business. And I'm sorry you had to find out this way. There's a market for this. Regardless, if we cease to participate in this business, it will go on without us. Make no mistake. This business will always have clients. It is lucrative and thriving, my dad said in a calm, collective voice. Thriving? I laughed in disbelief. How can you guys do this? Have you no conscience? What if someone was doing this to you or someone you loved? Is money more important than humanity? You're sharp for your age, Han. Always have been. The matter of the fact is that there's no sense of playing the what ifs. We are here. This is the present. Mom and I have been in the business for quite some time. We are veterans, you could say. We have perfected this trait. We are not stopping. The money is... He unclasps his hands and puts them out to the side. It's really good, Hannah. You will never have to work a real job. We have enough to put back into your trust fund. We have enough to put back into your trust fund that your grandkids won't even have to work. With the money we make from my clinic and Mom's houses, we are well off. But when you add this to the mix, well, we're fortunate. Mom and I are retiring early. Fortunate? Sit down, sweetie. Just take a breather. I know you're overwhelmed, and that's understandable. Your dad is telling you you're set for life financially, and you'll never struggle like Dad and I did when we were younger. Don't you tell me you're doing this for me. Not for you per se, but you benefit tremendously from it, Dad said with his elbows on his knees and his hands caressing his goatee. I sat down. My head was spinning. I didn't care about the money. Everything was so surreal, so numbing. I felt everything and nothing at the same time. How could I have never known this was happening in the place I called home? I ate here. I slept here. I played here. I loved my house. I used to love my house. Sweetie, why don't you go rest? Sleep on everything tonight, and tomorrow, once you process a little more, we can talk. Mom said as she stood above me, reaching her hand out to help me up. I stood up without taking her hand. I moved past her and headed to my room. I locked Potato and I in and put my face into the pillow and wailed. So, a deep, soul-suffering cry. The one that consumes you and you lose yourself in. I woke up to a loud knocking at my door. I looked around. It was morning. I had exhausted myself from crying and had slipped into a deep sleep. I opened the door, and it was Dad. Hey there, Mom had to go into the office today to tie up some loose ends with one of her clients, so it's just me and you, kiddo. He paused and examining my unamused demeanor. I thought I would show you what I do. What are you saying? I barked. I wanted to show you what I do when I work. You mean when you torment and kill people? No thanks, Dad. I'll pass. I said, shutting the door. He grabbed the door and we struggled. Now listen to me, Hannah. This is what it is. You won't change it. You won't fix it. You won't save anyone. You will, however, comply. My eyes were wide with adrenaline coursing through my body. I had never seen my dad angry. He had never even raised his voice. My hands wet with sweat and the one holding the door slid down until it was on my side. Well, today you need to come with me. You need to learn. I know you are a loving girl. You have a good heart and you are kind. You don't have to change that part of you. But you will have to do what we say from now on. You don't want to suffer the consequence of disobeying us. Now come. I followed him, too scared to resist. I said nothing, and I walked like a widow mourning her fallen husband's burial. Slow and slowly, we arrived to the white room. My dad looked back at me with glazed eyes, where tears may have been trying to communicate with me. I wish you would have just stayed away from here, Anna. That's all we ever asked. The first comment is all like, thanks for letting us know potatoes okay. Okay. Part 5. Training. I took a deep breath and braced myself for what was about to come. We walked into the room. The shiny marble was so clean it was disturbing. The metal surgical instruments that hung from the wall were so bright it was blinding. So clean, so professional. I was momentarily distracted by the room's perfectionist. I quickly came to and I looked over to the seat where Marie had been. Where is he? Where is she? Did you kill her already? I said with anger starting to bubble up inside me. Marie, I didn't know you realized. Marie, I didn't realize you knew her name, my dad said with a smile. Where is she? I got louder. She's back in her room. She's resting and recovering. Resting and recovering? She's not at a day spa. You've hacked that poor woman into nothing. You think she's capable of rest? I want to see her. I pushed past him towards the metal door that had led me to the black hallway. The marble human cages. He grabbed my arm. Itchy ear. So itchy. Now dear, think very carefully about what you're doing. There's a certain way to go around doing this business. We mustn't form attachments. It's easier that way. I looked at him and down his hand that was squeezing my arm so hard I could feel it bruising. He released me, but I was too frozen to move from his grip over me. He continued, quit licking your paw. I remembered my first. I was just like you. Yeah. I remembered my first. I was just like you. I had an eagerness to help him. I put myself in his position. I never thought I'd be able to do what people do in this business, but he looked for a minute before he spoke again. He looked like a young boy trying to muster up the courage to ask the cheerleader to prom. You see, this isn't something that most people just jump right into. You have to know the right people, and you have to be trained. Trained. Yes, trained. This is God, my neighbors are loud. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but like my neighbors are like yelling on the second floor. You have to know the exact places to cut and how to keep infection and bleeding out under control. Well, unless that's what you're trying to do. He laughed but swallowed it as soon as he said it. Anyways, This will become second nature to you eventually. You will be able to disassociate yourself from them. They are just work. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing, I thought to myself. That was the first thing he said that I agreed with. They were nothing. Nothing to people like him, at least. He waited for my reply. So what happens if I say no? The consequences you threatened me with earlier can't make me be a part of this. He smiled and it gave me chills. You can't say no. Mom and I will be reliant on the time we give you to adjust. But that's it. You will do this. Maybe not in our time, but in time. I won't do this. You can't make me be a part of you. I'm not that person. You're evil. Watch your tone, Hannah. You will. I looked down at my feet, defeated, broken, and confused. But what if I don't? Kids are the highest selling on the market, my dear. My stomach dropped to my feet and I started to rotate like a loopy roller coaster about to derail. I felt like my body had lost contact with gravity and was spinning. What did he just imply? My life was in stake? How could he? He would do this for me, for money? He would do this to me, for money? It took a while to speak. Like when you just had Novocaine at the dentist and your jaw feels 15 pounds heavier. The beginning was just a slur. What? He said. I said, why? Why? Hot tears streamed down my cheeks. Hannah, I don't want to resort to that. You have to know that. But your mom and I are not willing to go down for this. By anyone. If you do not participate, you are a threat. If you do participate, you're an accessory. We need insurance on you so that we are confident you don't talk. You don't want to be a prisoner in your own home, do you? With insurance on you, you can still carry on your life. School, sleepovers, outings, nothing changes. We know you won't talk because you're guilty of our sins. We know you will not talk if you were guilty of our sins. I wept. I fell to the floor and I cried like I've never had before. I started to hyperventilate, my lungs refusing to take in oxygen. My dad just stood there and watched for a minute, like I was a jester putting on a performance, unamused. You're almost done, he said, crossing his arms. I stared down at the shiny floor as my tears danced on it. I finally looked up at him like a puppy begging for food. What could I even say? Nothing would change this predicament. His coldness convinced me of that. I had to be a willing participant. He reached his hand out to help me off the floor. I looked at his hand, then at his eyes. I looked at his hand and he helped me to my feet. Or I took his hand and he helped me to my feet. As long as you're good to us, we will be nothing but good to you, my dear. Now, can we start? I stood in silence, my arms by my side and my head down. Today, we'll be removing the eyes. I kept my head down and I started to cry harder. My face was wet and sticky. My shirt was drenched at the collar. I looked up. Maria? I asked, like a whimpering toddler. No. Maria needs recovery. She is still needed for other things. We can't be too greedy with her or we won't be able to get her for all she's worth. Marie will be with us for a while. We have a new patient. But Hannah, no more names. Names give him too much power. Nicknames are fine, I guess. I never really call them anything but whatever they are ordered for. he said as he trailed off into a deep thought. If you want, I'll let you nickname this fellow, he asked, as if I should be grateful. I said nothing, still looking at my feet. Well then, shall I go grab him? Silence. Very good, I'll be right back. He disappeared into the black dungeon, and I stood weeping. It felt like he was all gone for only seconds. I dreaded for my future. I dreaded for what my future had in store for the next 24 hours. He came out with an average-built man, mid-40s, white, balding glasses, duct tape across his mouth, hands tied behind his back. We made eye contact, and he begged me to save him with his beautiful blue eyes. They were painfully blue. I looked back down at my feet, crying even harder. Dad slung the man into the chair and started to strap him down as he fought with all of his might. The key is to gaining power, he struggled, the man, is to keep him hungry and keep him tired, he said as he dusted off his hands from strapping him down. Now, he caught his breath. The next step is a personal decision, depending on the patient and how you're feeling, to sedate or not to sedate. I looked at him helplessly. Mr. Blue, he smiled as he looked in. Dad smiled as he looked at his eyes, then back to mine. He decided to kick me last night, between my legs. Good thing I'm not having any more kids, he laughed. I told him, Hannah, that it would be best if he didn't fight it. I told him, but he did. So he lost his right to be sedated. Mr. Blue wailed under the duct tape, salt water flooding his face. He knew what was to come. Dad, please, don't do this. Let me stop you there, Hannah. If you continue to talk this way, there will be consequences. Would you like to trade places with Mr. Blue? There's a high price on him right now. But your eyes are pretty close. I stood in awe. Had my life changed so drastically in days' time? How did it go so wrong? What have I done to deserve this? Maybe I wasn't being physically hurt, but mentally I was just being tormented as well. Maybe I wasn't being physically hurt, but mentally I was being just as tormented as them. Okay then, as I thought. Could we at least sedate him? I begged. Hannah, my mind is made up. I do not waver with work. There's no gray area. I said no sedation once, and I will not repeat myself. We clear? I looked back down at my feet. Mr. Blue flayed the whole time my dad was scooping his eyes out. The noises,